Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life of Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted my network, friends, colleagues, that have impacted their lives, their work, their business, whatever endeavors it is that they're taking on. So these are great leads that I'll be interviewing to get to those lessons that have inspired them and motivated them in these great books. So the way that I do it is that I cover it in three categories. The first category is when I speak to somebody about a book they're sharing with me that I've never read. Second category is a book that we've both read, whether specifically for this particular series or one that we've read in our past lives before even meeting. And then the third category is if they're the author and the publisher or the publisher of the book in question, that they want to get out their value, they want to get out their message of that book. So for this particular episode, I'll be speaking with an author, and I'll be speaking to Drew T. Jackson. And Drew is the author of the Amazon bestseller, The Executive Leader's Handbook. He's an executive coach and a leadership trainer for companies like Chick-fil-A, Lennox, Habitat for Humanity, and many more. Drew believes that anyone can be a leader if they have a proper motivation and a clear path for development. And he's been married to his wife, Heather, for 20 years, and they have 5 kids and 3 dogs. Drew, I'm just trying to imagine that because I was telling you I have 3 kids, and you're like, "Oh, I feel for you." I'm like, I'm just trying to imagine with 5 kids and 3 dogs, what that environment is like. So, kudos to you.
It's wild and crazy. We have 3 girls, and my wife and our 3 daughters all have long hair halfway down their back, and then we have 3 long-haired dogs. So we kill a lot of vacuums, right? We use a lot of Drano.
Yeah. Oh no, I know. Believe me, I
So
understand.
you and I, we're keeping the drains clean, man. You
Yeah, we're
know
we're saving time. We're being efficient. Like no one has to do that after us. But
exactly.
I'm lucky enough to have met Drew through this series. He saw what I was doing with the podcast, reached out about his work. We emailed back and forth, and I wanted to sit down with this conversation. And I'm just glad that through this series, my network keeps expanding for this kind of conversation that I want to get to. So, Drew, thank you for joining me.
Yes, thanks for having me, John.
So, Drew, I gave a short bio, but what does your work look like these days? What kind of things are you getting into in your business?
Yeah, so a lot of executive coaching, doing one-on-one coaching sessions with clients, particularly around leadership, people that are in leadership roles, and they want to continue to grow and develop in that role. And then training. I have a couple of clients, pre-pandemic, we all break things down, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I was primarily training. Um, Recognized, right, during the pandemic that um, probably wasn't going to be doing as much of that. If people were going to be soliciting my services, they were going to be doing more coaching and do one-on-one at the highest level, just because I didn't know exactly how the economy was going to shake out, and then knowing that folks weren't going to want to get a group of people in a room together. So I made that pivot, and here we are looking at a recession at the time of this recording, and it might be time to kind of look at and kind of think, what's the strategy for this next move? Just an interesting conversation me and some friends have been having. But yeah, no. So executive coaching and then training with staffs. Just like right before I jumped in here, I was with a staff I've been working with for 4 years. I love working with this company. Small businesses is who I work with, and they're great. We had a fantastic time doing some team building stuff, and I really enjoy working with clients for a long time and getting that
Yeah.
opportunity to, kind of see the iterations. We've done some job satisfaction surveys with them, and just to see the growth and the development. And then as the company grows, new challenges come. And that's what keeps it interesting, keeps it fun. So that's kind of my day in, day out. And working on a couple more books now, John. They say after you get that first one under your belt, you kind of you
I
get
can
hooked.
imagine.
And
I can
yeah,
imagine. I can imagine because I've had conversations with people that have written their first book, or authors like you that have written their book, others that have written several books, uh, and some that are working towards their first book. And it's always like that first, what does this process look like? Is it meant for me? Like, do I have the message for it? Okay, I have the message for it. You write it. Now it's navigating the publishing route of things. So I can imagine that it's like that once you get through that first hump of just understanding how you work as a writer, now whatever's an idea, you kind of get that sense that you can put something together to share that message. So, I mean, sincerely, congratulations on that.
Thank
Just that
you.
motivation to start thinking about that, what you want to follow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and when you have people around you that my mom and my sister both are great at, like the detail editing part of the book, so I can kind of get all the idea out there, and they can go through there, and they're not in leadership roles, in the workplace, so if it makes like if they get some of the concepts that I'm talking about, then anybody can get it if they're in a leadership role.
Yeah.
Because and that's really how I write and how I communicate things. It's going to be very practical. It's going to be very simple in the approach, and that's kind of stuff I love. I've always loved that practical side, what works in the real life
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And so
Plus,
that's
I
kind of
think
how I write.
I think it's good too that they don't come from that world. They're not, maybe that's leadership isn't what they're into, that they go out and seek. But it's good that they can read it to kind of flesh out what you're trying to say to maybe somebody who is not in a leadership role, but they want that connection to that next level of leadership that they want to develop.
Yeah.
So they
Well,
can
and
provide some insight on how to, so you don't get too many phrases in there, too many, you kind of write it for the layperson. So I can
yep.
imagine that they kind of help translate. Okay, this is you're maybe writing at a high level. You're throwing out too much terminology. Simplify it just a little more for other people to understand. I can imagine that might be the case.
Absolutely. You are dead on with that. That's exactly why. And so the questions that they have inform me on how I need to kind of change how I'm communicating it. And then here's the thing: everybody in their own mind has an idea of what a good leader is and what a bad leader is. And they've probably experienced at work, in a nonprofit they're a part of, in school, in sports. They've experienced good leadership and bad leadership. And so people can see it. They can sense it. They can feel when
Yes.
they're around a good leader or a not so great leader.
Yeah.
And so that also, anybody can really speak to what they're looking for. Now, you can kind of get into what's realistic, right? as
Yeah. Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
leader, leaders they're not perfect like anybody else, but it's good, I think, for everybody to kind of consider, what do I see as a good leader, and is that realistic? What kind of standard am I holding the people that lead me to?
Exactly, exactly. That's always an interesting question when I've done facilitations or group coaching is, each of you think of somebody whose leadership you admire. You don't know
Yeah.
quite why, but when you're around that person, sounds hokey, but you felt like you could do anything because you had that supportive, that informed, curious leader. And then think about somebody, without trashing anybody, that's not quite that you didn't feel that comfortable, that you didn't feel that open. And it's amazing how people, they don't they're not like me and you where we might overanalyze or analyze leaders, but those examples are out there. That's what I always tell even students that I coach is those examples in your past are out there. Look to those examples. Nothing is cookie cutter, but get your best inspiration from your own. If you don't have time to read a book, if you haven't gotten a mentor yet, look to your own experiences to see what kind of examples were out there for what you want to gravitate towards and what you kind of want to avoid. And it's trial and error.
Yep.
It's not
Oh,
going to be cookie
absolutely.
cutter. It's not, your what you want for your leadership today may not be what you want in 5 years. So it's always going to change, but be curious and you have those examples in your past.
Yeah, and yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying with that. And it is the trial and error piece. I mean, that's how I learned leadership. I didn't wake up one day and just knew all these things about leadership. I would read something in a book, and then I just put it in practice. I had
Yeah.
opportunities to lead, and so I'd put it into practice, and I'd go, oh wow, that worked, or maybe I need to tweak that. Maybe I didn't understand that properly, and I tweak it, and then kind of figure out my way of doing it. And yeah, that's
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
you have to do. At some point, you have to stop kind of taking in information and just consuming, and you have to just go practice it. You have to put these things into practice.
Yeah. So Drew, when it comes to your work, what was the path that led you to this work? Like, what was it from your past, whether it was an experience, whether it was serendipity, whether it was education, whether it was a leader you saw yourself? What was it? What was your path to now from like when you were a kid? We don't have to cover every day, but like, what was your path, your education? What were the different kind of roles that you had to that led to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I think like most people, if you find yourself in a leadership role, it's probably because you delivered excellence at some level in a job function, right? You did well, and people are like, "Oh, well, you should be a leader then." And that's usually how people get those responsibilities. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes you kind of take that mantle and you run with it. And other times, you put the top salesperson in a sales manager role, and it's bad for them. It's bad for the team, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't always work, but that's usually how it happens. I wouldn't be any different in that same way in work. In school, it's funny, it's more popularity things, which I think fall under more of the influence category. I was in choir, in high school, and
Me
I
too.
always
Hey.
tell, there you
Me
go.
too.
Hey, here we go, John. I tell people, hey, if choir wasn't cool at your school, it's because your choir sucked. Okay. And so we were good. So it was cool at our school. But anyways, so being part of that, I was voted to be the choir president one year. And I didn't think anything of it beyond just, it was a popularity thing. But as you grow up, you can see some of those things along the way that people have elevated you as their leader. But in work, the same thing. I spent, the first 10, 12 years of my career in the nonprofit world, though, whether it was volunteering or working for the local church. I was a pastor at our church.
Okay.
Worked with youth ministry, ended up planting a church in Santa Barbara, California. And so I got leadership opportunities. My pastor, the one who led me, would every month, he'd have us on a new book. And we'd be reading a leadership book, and okay, this is a good to great. We got to read this one. John Maxwell just wrote a new one. We got to read it. So that's where I started reading these concepts, and then I had the opportunity with a volunteer team to begin to put these things into practice. And I think folks that are in the nonprofit world, that's really the most challenging leadership, because you don't have a paycheck to hold over people to get them to do stuff. You actually have to communicate a vision. You have to inspire action through something bigger and greater than any one of us individually, and get people to show up and put in their own time, energy, and effort to do something. And so that's really where I got my start in leadership. But when I planted a church in Santa Barbara, California, I went to the Chamber of Commerce, like most people that start a business. I went there and I was like, hey, I started this church, and I built this email database of about 3,000 people in a short amount of time. And it was business leaders. It was some college students. There's a big college demographic there. And I'd have bank presidents come up to me, John. They'd say, hey, I really like your weekly email. It's very practical stuff about like communicating and, relationship stuff. And they say, I really like your stuff. I say, hey, why are you whispering? We can have a conversation. And I said, well, if you like my email, just come to a Sunday service sometime and you'll enjoy it. And they go, that's not my thing. I'd rather do church. And so I realized, after a number of years of doing that, I had this opportunity in the business world with folks to have influence, right? I think all of us have to step back at some point in our life. We have to say, hey, where are the opportunities that are kind of emerging around me?
Yeah.
And I saw these opportunities, and that folks were attracted to me. I was attracted to them, and it opened up just greater opportunities for me. Kind of, instead of being in one kind of faith-based niche, I could go beyond that into the business world, broader business world, and have influence there. And so, anyways, I launched out doing that. When was it? That was 2018, into 2017, 2018. is when I started my business and doing it full time. And so, yeah, it's just been a great experience. But taking that leadership training, I've been training people for years. I've been speaking and doing the speaking thing, every week with a new talk every week. The coaching piece, though, I hadn't done.
Mhm.
And, I'd done counseling, done mentoring, but I hadn't really leveraged questions to help people come to their own conclusions, create action steps, and experience more success. And so I had to go get educated in that process, which is really why I didn't lean all into it until 2020, because I was a little gun shy. I was trained in it. I'd done it with clients, but I kind of brought it in as I'll do some training and then I'll do coaching one-on-one as a supplement to the training that I'm doing. Whereas in 2020, that all flipped and I went all in on coaching.
Yeah. 2020 obviously was a wake-up call. It's almost like any tentative plans, if you're gun shy, especially any tentative plans, it was like, okay, now or never. It exacerbated the urgency, and it just kind of motivated everybody to kind of step up and, all right, stop talking, just do and move forward. So it's a silver lining. You don't wish the pandemic on any of
No.
society or the world, but I mean, so many people have made great strides in what they wanted to achieve. And through what they wanted to achieve, they've helped so many people. So, I mean, you fall in that category.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you look at just some of the increases in technology, the comfort level with interviews like this. And John, I don't know about you, man, but I am super excited about the metaverse. I can't wait to have my first coaching session in the metaverse, man. And I got my Quest 2 goggles. Yeah, man. And I think there's some really cool applications right now. And as the years go by, totally off on a tangent right now, but I got a whiteboard just on the wall right here.
I'm the king of tangents, Drew.
Go ahead. Great. So in the metaverse, I mean, you do training, you do coaching, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So in the metaverse, you can get a group together like you would a Zoom meeting to do a training, but instead of just having our screens right here, we could meet up in a room with a whiteboard and whiteboard out something. And all think about all be together in the room, interacting, have the side breakout sessions. And that's just one small component of where we can go with it. I mean, experiential learning. I learned about some of that in college, did a few applications with it. But
I never thought about the metaverse in terms of coaching.
Yeah.
And when you just mentioned, I'm like, okay, is it the anonymity? But there really is something to, and I'm somebody who loved going back to school. I kept going back to school. I just loved it. There is something about a Zoom screen with 40 faces. That's great. That's amazing. But there is something about, I don't know anything about the metaverse, but there is something about putting something on and being engrossed in that experience where you look around like you're sitting in a classroom and you have the people next to you, right? Is that, am I?
Yes.
No,
you're right. You're right on. And get this. So not just that. So I am so fresh. I've watched a bunch of videos. I want to be on the front end of it with my business, right? I want to have coaching sessions, and here I didn't know why. Last night I put it on because I'm just a little bit a day. I got to do this. I put it. My son set it up for me. I put on my goggles, and I just got my Amazon Prime hooked up, and I'm like, okay, my wife's doing something right now. I'm just gonna watch a movie, right?
Okay.
So I put them on, and it puts me in a theater, and then it has the screen. And I end up, I'm on my couch here in my room. I'm just going to lay back, and I'm watching the movie right there, which is just cool. You can move the screen and have it anywhere you want. Yeah. So you're not limited by that, which all those applications apply for work too. But get this. What do you normally do while you're watching a movie?
Popcorn.
What else? Not a movie in a movie theater, but like a movie at home. A movie's on, and you're just kind of sitting there.
I mean, you're obviously, with like kids, you're like multitasking. You're doing other stuff. Like very rarely are you fully
fully immersed.
The only time I'm really not even in the movie theater. I was going to say not even in the movie theater because I've spent so much time going to the theater with my kids that you're handling other stuff. But I think when I was younger and when with my friends, like we were in the movie, that's what we were
Yes.
doing. And now, even when you're watching it at home, you're tooling around on your phone and whatnot. So
Yes, you're on your phone, or you just have it as background noise while you're kind of doing some uh, menial task on the computer, right? And it's
yeah,
going. You can't do that when you have these goggles on,
yeah,
because you can't.
you can't
It's
look
too much
away. You
work. Yeah,
can't
it's too
focus on
much.
anything else.
Exactly. That's it. You're in it, and then the sound is right there. So it's, you've got this little bubble that's going on all around you. I've even heard some of the things about a baseball game or an experience in general is that we can hear directionally,
Yeah,
right? We
yeah,
can tell something happened behind us. There's a crack of a ball at a baseball game in front of us. There's someone laughing behind us, right? Well, as this technology develops, all that multi-directional sound is a component as well that immerses you. But just the point of that, putting on the goggles, now when you're holding a training, people can't check their email while you're doing a training, or while the leader is casting the vision for the organization. You just physically can't do it. Now with augmented reality, that's a totally different thing. You can, but if you got a virtual reality headset, how they're currently constructed, you're locked in. And the power of that for me, because I just don't do it anymore, right? None of us do. I was like, wow, this is really interesting that I kind of have to be all in on whatever it is I'm doing right now, and not split my focus. And so I
your
think there's so many
attention. Yeah,
applications
yeah.
for training, for coaching, for businesses. Period.
So Drew, what? Yeah, I mean,
Just to throw you off, just to
we'll
totally
see.
throw you off
No,
on our
no,
conversation here.
not at all, because that's the future of obviously the world.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have an experience in it. Um, it's like social media. At one point, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there, and then there was talk of there, and then people were joining, and then, obviously people can not join, and a lot of people don't. But I mean, that society is so social media centric, So
Yeah.
I mean, this may be the next thing where it's like metaverse. So you go into this meeting, or instead of commenting on somebody's thing or sharing something on social media, like you said, a whiteboard. I'll be at a
Mm-hmm.
presentation, or much in the same way we have them now, but with that immersive sensory experience.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. We'll see. We'll see. I get cautious with that stuff just because too much technology, it's already kind of doing us in. Hopefully we kind of temper that and kind of control it more than it controls us currently. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Uh,
It'll be interesting. I think the educational benefits are tremendous, just from once again the experiential. Being able to look 360, take the kids on a field trip to a different country,
yeah.
right? You can, and we can walk around and we can look and we can see. Even eventually they want to be able to have it where you can physically touch and you feel the things that you would feel. So if there's a certain type of tree and the bark is really unique and you can feel that, and somehow that's programmed into the
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 gloves you would be wearing or something,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's so amazing that people have actually figured out some of these things, um, and how to do them. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's going to be an in and out, immersive, and then back out into to normal. But anyways, we'll see.
Drew, I'm curious only because I mentioned, my talking to students and that they should look back into their lives to see the best and the not so good examples of leadership. Who are the leaders that you go to in your life or from your past that you highlight or for yourself are an inspiration to you?
Yeah, my dad would definitely be way up there on the list with uh, knowing how to work with people. So much even of my book, and I talk about it in there, that I learned from him: how to communicate with people, how to interact with people, how to just those people skills, winning people over. I got a front row seat on how to do that from my dad. That was hugely instructional. And then out of my life, as far as um, who I've read the most of, been around, would be John Maxwell. Just his style of leadership, that servant style of leadership, has been a huge inspiration in my life, and someone that I've read a number of his books and learned a tremendous amount from him. Those would definitely be two of the big ones in my life. And then I just love, in general, this isn't a particular person, but I love to mix not just the practical or my personal experience, but I feel like it gives more weight when I add some research in there.
Yeah,
I love
of
to,
course.
you know, I love the HBR, Harvard Business Review articles, Leadership Challenge right here, you know, and they're just their
There you go.
survey of people. They've surveyed so many thousands and thousands of people to come up with, hey, this is what people want in a leader. That's very informative than just my personal experience and what I want. Because what I like, I might be like, you know what? I don't care if they talk down to me because that doesn't affect me, you know. But other people, it's like, hey, like have some empathy, you know, and that's like a big theme, you know, that we need to recognize. And you know, I used to always just try to fight things, John. Like, hey, this is how I should do it. I remember when I started my YouTube channel, I was just like, well, these are the things everybody needs to learn about leadership. And it's like, well, that's not how YouTube works. YouTube is a search engine. You need to figure out what people are asking and what they're looking for, and then answer those questions. And you can answer it in the way that you think is right. But you need to answer what people are actually asking. And that's a shift that I've had to go through in the last few years, just to humble myself and say, hey, what do the people want? What are people looking for in a leader? What questions do they have? How can I answer those questions and serve them? And instead of trying to be the guru or be the expert and tell them what I think they need to learn.
And then obviously not naming names, but in keeping it as general as you want to or can, was there a leader from your past that kind of stands out as demonstrating pitfalls to avoid?
I think every leader, right? I think this is my experience. I think the closer you get to any leader, so if you have someone that mentors you and they really bring you in tight and they're vulnerable with you, which is what you want, right? You want them to be vulnerable with you. What you're going to find out, just like my kids know about me, is that I am not a perfect man, and I have flaws, and I have. Here's one thing that's very true. You know, we judge ourselves by our intentions, and we judge others by their actions. And you know, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, well, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings, but my actions hurt their feelings, right? So that's really what others are judging me by. And so I couldn't tell you someone that, you know, was like an evil leader, you know, so to speak, that ruined my life or anything or anything like that. But you know, I think the closer you get to people, you do realize that they're flawed. One of the biggest flaws being insecurities. And because when people are insecure, they try to push you down. And so, you know, if you have a leader that's withholding information from you, that would be beneficial to you to do your job. If you have a leader that you know, takes the credit from you, if you have a leader that it doesn't, you just can sense it that they don't want you to move up in the organization, they feel threatened by you. That's probably an insecure leader. And I think those are the worst leaders, because what a confident leader will do is they'll recognize the gifting in you. They'll create the opportunity for you because they're confident in their own skills, knowing that, hey, the more people, because this is leadership success, right? The more leaders I can make, the more successful leader I am. The more value, right? The more valuable I am to the organization.
I mean, there's that, you know, you mentioned insecurity, and it's, if you're insecure, I mean, to you, everything's going to be a threat. You don't feel, and I think you just mentioned the word, you may have in the last couple seconds, but about control. Where if you're insecure, you feel like you have no control over most things. But a leader that knows themselves, knows what they can control, and tries to learn about what they can't. So you can't really, you can catch them off guard, but you can't really throw them off too much because they're comfortable in what they know, and they know they don't know everything.
Yeah.
They're trying to be as informed as possible. They're not going to let themselves go into a situation blind. So I mean, there's so much to learn from that, from just a leader that's vulnerable, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So Drew,
Yeah.
what was it that we're going to cover your book? And if you could you
Sure.
introduce the book, and then we'll just kind of get into it and what made you write it and what people can find in there. But for now, if you could just introduce the book, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. So it's called the Executive Leader's Handbook. And it's a guide for the daily challenges of leadership, and that's exactly what it is. So you've got we all come, every one of our cars come with a handbook or like a little manual in
User's
there.
manual, yeah, yeah,
User's
yeah.
manual, yeah. So if you get a flat tire, you go to page 275. It tells you how to, where your spare tire is, where your jack is, all that kind of stuff. So the same thing with this book. If you have a problem with, man, my meetings suck right now, right? I don't I need to spice up my leadership meetings, my team meetings. I've got a chapter on that with how to lead meetings. If you don't know how to communicate some tough information to an employee, I've got a chapter on that. You just look up how to do that. So it's really broken down into 3 sections. The first section is on communication and connection. I think the foundation of all soft skills is really communication, whether it's leadership, team building, sales. It's going to be your ability to say what you want to say and people understand it. And if you can do that, then Warren Buffett says you've increased your own personal net worth potential by 50% just by learning communication skills. So I've got that first section's on communication skills. The next section is on organizational leadership. So really, like I said, how to hold a meeting, very practical items on running an organization, how to get vision buy-in. How do you, so you got this desire in your heart, you got this vision where you want your organization to go. How do you tell your team? It's not, you can't just keep it to yourself. They need to know where we're going, and that's going to inform them on how they make decisions and how they work day in and day out. So how you lead your team, organizational leadership. And then the final section is really on your personal growth and then your mindset. There's a lot of things that we self-sabotage based on our mindset, how we interact with failure. Any successful person will tell you that failure is a part of the journey. The faster you can get through the failures, the faster you can get to success. And so really how you engage with that. What do you do when you're terrified, right? How do you press through that terror barrier in life? And so I've got some little, and these are all little 3-4 page chapters that you literally go in there, read it, shut the book, put it on the shelf, run out, try it, right? And hey, if you didn't do it right the first time, that's okay. Try it again, practice it, get better, read the chapter again and say, did I follow everything he said in there? Tweak it to make it your own, and then put the book on the shelf until you need it again. So it's not the type of book that you get out and you read from cover to cover in one sitting. People have done it, but that's not how I designed it. I really designed it. There's a couple of introductory chapters, and then you use as necessary. And usually people have one of the chapters they say, oh, that's what I need right now. And they'll jump in there, they'll read that, they'll put it into practice, and hopefully they find success. And then they try it again when they have another challenge.
Yeah, I love the fact that you include as that third section, what was it, mindset?
Mindset, yeah, just your own personal growth and development.
Just because I think so many of the lessons that we hear in life, like I was talking to somebody in the last couple of days about fitness, one of my close friends, and I told her that I was getting back into working out, and I see the importance of it now, right? Like obviously, all your life you should be working out, you're going to be healthy, la da 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 da. But what I told her was just in working out and getting back into that rhythm, there's just something about what it does for the rest of your life, not the rest of your life forward, but just all the
your
different areas in your day to day.
Yeah.
That it's more about mentality, where in the past it was like, okay, this is good for your heart, or okay, this is good for how you look or how you feel about your body. But there's more to it than that. And what I'm getting at is that it's amazing how many lessons we get in life, but we're not really told about why.
Yeah.
We're not really told about where that leads. For years we're taught in school the lessons across all these different subjects, and some are scientific. It's just that's the way it is. But I think what we lose out in education is why things are important. You mentioned failure. You can learn all these tools about moving forward and what you should do to succeed or learn a new crap, blah, 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 blah. But they never really tell you in education what happens if it doesn't work out. And I've spoken about this ad nauseum. It's big in my head, just about that growth mindset. So I think not so much like the steps as you outlined in the first couple sections of your book, but just that last one is key, because it's okay. Like this is how to not just power through it, but to understand why you're doing it and what kind of mindset you really have to have. That it's not just the tips of the previous chapters, what they should look like, but what's really driving you into each of those to learn them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, I don't know, just so much goes into it. So I appreciate that you have those first sections that are kind of like the tips and the examples, and then that it's just so much mind work.
Yeah.
Because I've had clients that have brought me in and just tell me they've told me, like, just tell me what to say to people so they follow me. Like, legit, this is what they
Yeah.
say. I don't want to go through anything. I just want to know what to say to them so that they listen.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, where you get into that authenticity. It's like, no, you first have to understand what you're all about, what you want to see. To me, leadership is communication, as you said before. To me, it's
Yeah.
learning all these lessons, and for the most part, people just seeing your example.
Yeah.
You're trying to live your virtues, your value, your mission. You're thinking about your thinking, that meta thinking, and then people see your example. Like, to me, so much more comes through the example than any kind of directive or order.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so it's just fascinating that people are still saying stuff like that. Like, just tell me what to tell them so they follow me. It blew me away, but you know, that's not quite the way it works. To me, it's a lot of self work. So I'm always happy when I see manuals like this, uh, literally like a user's manual, because I think a lot of it is those day to day instances as you lay out, for which you have those tips to follow to get to that result that you want.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what?
You,
Go
you,
ahead. I'm
you
sorry.
just, you learn so much. You learn so much more in the failures too. You learn about yourself. You learn kind of what you're made of. Um, you learn that it's not that bad at the end
Yeah.
of the day. Like we all try to avoid failure, which we should. We want to be successful. We want to do things well. Um, we shouldn't set out to fail,
Yeah. Of
but
course.
have a proper understanding that I had a friend, he would say failure is only feedback. And I
Yeah.
think that's true. It's only feedback as long as you don't repeat it over and over again, right? And
Yeah.
that's
To me, that's the part that is failure, is if you're failing to learn the lessons. To
yeah,
me, yeah, it's about experimentation. Try something. If it doesn't work out, gather your resources. Like, it's crazy that they teach us that. I just thought about this the other day, or just rung in my head for some reason, because I was in my mind about failure. It's crazy that they teach us the scientific method in school. You have to memorize the steps for your experiment, and they test us on it, and they have us do it in experiments they know the result is going to be right.
yeah, yeah.
But then they don't say that's what you should be doing for your life. Have your
Mm,
hypothesis, get your tools together, get
yeah.
your chemicals together, get your glassware together, get all the tools and resources you need. What do you think you want to hypothesize?
Yep.
Does it work? No. Okay, what do we need to tweak? What were the notes that you took? What do you need to tweak to make it, to try to make it work again? It's just amazing that they teach us that, the scientific method, but they don't tell us to apply that in some form to our lives.
Well, hey,
It's mind blowing.
I,
It's
I
mind
think
blowing.
you should. I think you should start a whole new training, because that's basically strategic planning. The strategy is the hypothesis. The strategic bet is, like I mentioned earlier, my strategic bet in the pandemic was coaching, right? Pivot to coaching. That's my hypothesis, is that coaching is going to do better than training right now. And I made that strategic bet, and it worked out for me. And then I planned, right? I had to gather the resources and say, hey, what what do I need to do to execute on this thing that I think is going to work, and make those changes. I think that's the essence. I do some strategic planning with clients at the beginning of the year, and that's what it is, right? It's what is our bet? What do we think is going to hit this year?
Yeah.
When we look at our skill sets, what we're good at, what is our strategic bet? And you may be right, you may be wrong, right? You might try a marketing plan and you were a year late, or you were a year earlier, or you didn't have the proper resources to execute on it. And so now you have to regroup and figure out if you have the resources this year. So all of those things, they do factor in. I hadn't seen it with the scientific method. All I was hoping is that you wouldn't test me right now, John, on the scientific method. I was like, he's going to ask me what the steps are. And I'm like, I don't even know.
I don't even know the steps. I think there's 5, I think, and then sometimes there were 6, but
I bet if you learn them, that's a whole new training you could be doing for leaders.
Yeah,
that's
I'm in the course of writing something, just like a blog post
cool.
on that. But it's just, I don't know why that hit me. Like, I'm like, failure to me is something not working out. And as I've mentioned before, I think we're afraid of failure because of what it meant when we were in school. We'd be left back. It was like a scarlet letter. So that really hindered us from trying anything new, like to our own detriment, and the way that we are as young people, like if it doesn't work out for you, there's going to be somebody that's going to point it out and laugh. And that just kind of stays with us and resonates with us. But it's time to do away with that. It's not about, no, don't say fail. Like you never fail. To me, it's just the word. It's the mindset. It's okay that something doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Gather your notes, go back to the drawing board. It should be kind of a tactic, like a strategy, almost like a game. But it's just the way that word failure has kind of tainted us in life. That's unfortunate. So anytime it comes up, I appreciate it in conversation when somebody mentions just about that mindset to get through it and really appreciate that it happens. And I think the reason that it's so tough is that you really don't learn that lesson until it happens to you.
Yeah.
We could tell somebody, but they won't know until they're at what they think is rock bottom, and then they can build back and say, damn, like you said, you referenced it, what's kind of like, and what happens when you fail, it's really not that bad, only in certain instances, but none of it for the most part is going to be life or death. We're not talking about those. We're talking about development and how you carry yourself out. Life or death, that's something, serious, security, safety. We have to keep that in mind, but everything else is like fair game. Everything else should be fair game for trying new things.
Yeah. And I talk about the different kind of levels of failure in the book as well, with, moral failure being the greatest level, right? If we do something illegal, immoral, or unethical, that's going to hit our leadership credibility the deepest. If we make a technical error, a technical failure, that's not the end of the world. We mess up, or we make a miscalculation on what we think we can do organizationally, or maybe a miscalculation on the influence we think we have in our organization. That's okay. That's a humbling experience, but that's not the end of the world. And kind of ranking and understanding at the end of the day, for most of us, it's not even a blip on anybody's radar. Fail, right? Everybody's so busy looking at themselves and trying to see how they look publicly that they're not concerned with your failure to meet whatever goal you had for yourself.
It's interesting when I see like not memes, but kind of pictures online that have quotes, or somebody put something on social media that's like, for all the haters, or for all the people in my life that this, or, stay away from these people. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't remember the last time somebody laughed at me because something didn't work out. Do you know what I mean? And if you're somebody that's always complaining that you're around people that are looking at things that you've tried that haven't worked out and laughed at you or criticized you, come on, really? Like, you got to surround yourself with a better crowd. But I don't know. I think, like you said before, you had mentioned. I'm sorry. What was the quote, Drew? Where it's kind of like our intentions versus our
Yeah,
actions.
yeah. People judge us based on our actions. We judge ourselves based on our
Yeah,
intentions.
and I mean, we're sitting there worried about what other people are thinking, and meanwhile,
Yeah.
everybody else has got their own things to worry about. Everybody else has those similar concerns, but we're still kind of worried that we're getting those looks or whatever it might be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would always say with my wife, um, you know, that person's not going to, whatever criticism they have, they're not going to pay for my housing. They're not going to pay for my car.
Exactly.
So, like, why do I
Yeah,
care, right?
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Once you
I'm out here.
realize that people's opinions aren't gonna, they're not gonna, if they work with you and they're putting you down, they make you look bad in front of the boss. It can impact, depending on who your
Yeah,
boss is, it can impact your life. But in general,
yeah,
somebody's bad look or bad critique, feedback is okay, but
yeah.
some insecure
Harsh
critique or
criticism. Yeah,
that's not gonna okay. I mean, sticks and stones at a certain point. Come
yeah,
on. This is
yeah.
your life. You gotta move forward and not let if that's still happening, not let that because it's not gonna pay the bills at the end of the day.
Yeah, and some great person, I've heard it attributed to a lot of different people throughout history. But if you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing, and that's the only way you're going to avoid criticism in life. And whether it's on a YouTube video or on a podcast or on a post or anything else, or just someone around your life, hey, so what? It's just a little criticism. It's not that big a deal, and not worth getting all worked up about. That's for sure.
So Drew, when did this book, the idea for it start kind of percolating? Was it a pandemic project that worked out or was it something before?
No, so all of the material, I had about 70% of the book written in different places, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a something I just written in some notes, whether it's a portion of a YouTube video that I had done, and it was more of last year. Yeah, so into last year, um, I always knew I wanted to write a book, but I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to go and get this out and make this happen. And so, really, 90-day sprints just work for me. So I really took 90 days and I compiled, and I gave myself some. Um, I think the big thing we talked about kind of before the interview, hurdles with a book. I think you have to give yourself a couple of rules with whatever book or whatever thing that you're doing. And so some of the rules that I had in place for myself were these had to be things that I actually used
Mhm.
and I used with my clients, and it got positive results. So these weren't things that I just kind of made up, but these were things that I've used, and I'm not asking other people to test out my theories,
Yeah, yeah,
essentially.
yeah. Yeah.
And so that helped me narrow it down, right? Because there's some things that you write about that you're like, I did some research, and these are some of the top qualities of a leader based on whatever research out there. Uh, but instead, this book was all about stuff that I had used with my clients. I'm still using with my clients, and it's gotten them positive results, and they're things that I've used in my own leadership journey. So that helped me narrow it down, and then it was just a matter of sharpening it, making sure that every page counts that's in there, and then getting some help kind of executing on the editing and the areas that I'm not good. And then, man, there's so much out there. I self-published on Amazon. There's so many people out there with Amazon or with a Fiverr or anything else that can format a book, create a cover for your book, do all those types of things to help you get your information out. And I really wrote the book, and I talk about this in the first chapter. Man, I early on in my business, I ran into a wall. I had the initial success, and people, I think they're around your life. They're like, man, let's throw this guy a bone. Let's help him get off the ground. And I had that initial success, and then after that, it was like, okay, friends and family are gone, right? And so where do I go from here? And it felt like everything I was trying was failing. I was hitting my head against a wall. And I reached out to John Maxwell and was able to ask him about that. I said, hey, I don't know if you ever run into obstacles in business. That's just how insecure I was. I was so down on myself. So just beaten down by, I said, I don't know if you ever run into obstacles in business, but if you have, or if you did, what would you do? And he gave me these wonderful tips. And the one that really stuck out to me was, you've got to assess the wall. You've got to assess the obstacle. And I played football in high school, and I was a lineman, and we had this drill where we would had this 55-gallon drum, and it wasn't full, but maybe had some water, some dirt in there, and we had to push it up and over this hill. And the first time I tried it, I'm shuffling my feet, I'm moving my hands and trying to push this barrel over this mound of dirt. And the first time I didn't do it. And so what do you do if you're a lineman in high school, you're 16 years old, you back up, you just hit that thing harder, right? And so I backed up and I hit it harder. Well, it worked, and I got the barrel over the hill. But what I didn't realize is that I was taking that same logic and applying it to my business. And instead of assessing the wall or the challenge that I was facing, I just backed up and I just hit it harder. Back up, hit it hard. Do the same strategy, but just do it with more energy, more effort, less sleep. Just do it more,
And the wall isn't changing.
No, the wall, because there's different walls, right? Some walls you have to dig under. Some walls you cut a door in. Some walls you have to climb over. Some walls you have to just walk around, right?
Yeah. Those are the worst ones. Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of different walls but you've got to assess that obstacle and that challenge that you're facing. And that's why I wrote the book, because some people in leadership opportunities and leadership experiences, man, they're running into a wall they're losing influence with their team because their meetings suck. And they don't have any energy. They don't seem to have a purpose, and people are on their phones and they're checking email while you're trying to have a meeting, and you don't even know why you're having a meeting, but your boss before you had a meeting, and so you think you're supposed to have a meeting, and so all these things, and then you're getting all up in your head about it. That's a wall. That's an obstacle. And so what do? Man, just pick up the book, read one of the chapters on what you need, and solve the problem, and then keep on going. So that's why I wrote the book, because I figure there's at least one other person out there that's run into some leadership walls, and they'll enjoy what I've got.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a leadership book, but what's always great about different books on leadership or whatever the topic may be is that each author is going to have their own voice, their own experiences, their own tone. Because I've said it before, people always ask me, like, how can I have so many leadership books? Because everybody has their own experiences. They may put it in a certain way that resonates with you where it didn't resonate before. Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to have this lifetime of experiences in football, in your church, in your coaching and your training, that no one, the 5 kids and the 3 dogs.
And that's going to reach some people. That's going to connect on one of those points.
Exactly.
It's going to connect. And I heard, oh my goodness, I can see his face and I can't think of his name right now. Anyways,
no, who is it? Who is it? I love this game.
Oh no, really? I can't think of
like a business person, or
he's like the greatest motivational speaker in the history of US. He filled the Georgia Dome with Les.
Who?
Les.
Okay, I found this on the web for Georgia.
Alexa.
Check it out.
Alexa.
See, that's why I shut mine off. That's why I shut mine off. I was thinking like I didn't know if you meant like like Jim Rome or Tony Robbins, or is it like an old school motivational speaker?
He's still alive. No.
Okay. Well, no, yeah, but was it the kind of motivational speaker where you had to buy his series on cassettes?
Probably, yeah.
Now I need to know who it is.
I know, right? I don't know. Why am I stuck? I mean, I think it's Les, but
that's all right. It's all right.
This is horrible. Anyways, he said everybody has their own voice, and your voice, like your literal voice, your podcast. That's why there needs to be as many podcasts as there are now and more, because John, your unique voice, right, is going to resonate with some people, and they're going to say, "Man, I just trust that guy. I hear his voice. I trust him. I connect with him. I feel like he gets me. He understands the point of view that I'm coming from. He interviews people that I like. He talks to people. His network is the kind of people that I want to have in my network." And that's the unique thing that you bring to the table. And now I'm just going to claim that as my own teaching. If I can.
John, I just looked it up. Is it Les Brown?
Yes, Les Brown. Thank you so much. I could not get off Mills with the working out. It's Les Brown. Les Brown. I mean, what a saint of a person. And just that idea, because as a speaker, right? Everybody's a coach these days. You can trip over coaches walking down the street.
Yeah.
But different coaches obviously bring different backgrounds, different skill sets, unique value proposition. But in addition to that, they have their own story, their own unique self that people are going to resonate with, and they're going to connect with, and they're going to want to. Some people are going to want to be around, and they're just like, man, this guy works for us in our organization, and that's all anybody needs to be, right? And for some people, that's going to be. They have a voice for 10 people. For others, they have a voice for 50. For others, hundreds, and others, thousands and tens of thousands. Great. It's not our responsibility really to judge how many our voice resonates with. It's just to go out and use our gifts, use our skills, use our abilities, and let the cards fall where they may.
Such a good point. Because I just in talking with coaches, executive coaches, leadership coaches, however it is that they label themselves. Where maybe in the past I would have felt threatened or like an imposter of some kind. I've come to appreciate, and you just brought this up, just the uniqueness of your voice. Like we both brought it up, but just the uniqueness. And I tell people when I've spoken at graduations, where it's kind of like, listen, there's thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people that are graduating right now with your degree. Maybe they have the same internships, the same type, like almost identical. What are you going to do to set yourself apart? And I'm not talking about the interview, that's important, but I'm talking about your voice. Because what happens with a lot of people that I've coached, when they get back to feeling more like themselves, when they get back to feeling more fulfilled in the work they're doing, when they feel like they're finally back where they're supposed to be in their head and their heart, it's that they've kind of gone back and picked up who they were and brought that person forward. Do you know what I mean? Where we get out of college, we apply for jobs. Here's the job description. That's all we need of you. And that's what people are like, okay, I need a job, or that's the salary that I need, so I got to take this. And then they forget their uniqueness. They forget their voice, whether it's their actual tonal voice, audio voice, or just their values or their virtues, all that stuff. It's just amazing how much we leave behind, and that's our uniqueness. And some of us, I used to be a very timid kid. I suffered from the triad of quiet. I called it the quiet. I've written about that before, where it's like lack of confidence, shyness, and introversion. But then you get to the point, and I only got to what you may be seeing here. Like people are like, what are you talking about? You're an introvert. You're so fucking chatty. Like you don't stop talking. But that's when I'm pumped up about meeting new people, talking about leadership, helping people get to their goals, because it's when you find that voice that resonates with you, your purpose. That's when, I just got to a point where I realized what my voice is for.
Yeah.
And then no one is going to, and to go back to what I was saying about the coaches, is like, no one's going to have your voice. They will only have your voice if you're trying to parrot what they're doing, if you're leaving too much of your unique self on the table. But no one has your unique voice, so just use that.
Yeah, well, and that's what is attractive to people, right?
Yeah.
Is when, because everybody wants that, but they don't know how to be that. So when you can be comfortable in your own skin, and people see that, they go, I like that, because they're not perfect. They're comfortable in their own skin, and I want to be like that. I mean, we talk about leadership, influence qualities. That is a big one. You talked about, leaders that you're coaching, finding their authentic voice. That's you can't just kind of glaze over that and go, oh, that's kind of woo-woo stuff. No.
Yeah,
that is that's the kind of thing that people, they sense. That we talk about, people have presence, right? When they walk in a room. What is that? I don't know. It's a thing though. It's very real. It's tangible, because you can feel like, whoa, like, I don't know who they are, but I think there's somebody, because like there was like a shift in the room when they came in here, And it's those kinds of things, just like authenticity. When you're comfortable in your own skin, you're the type of person that makes other people feel comfortable. And people go, I don't know what it is about them, but I like being around them because I feel like I can be myself and I don't have to be anybody else. We got the best compliment years ago in our home. My wife and I, we had some friends come over and they're like, man, this place, it feels like grandma's house or something. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably the best compliment I could get, because
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
comfortable at grandma's house, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
that's home.
it's safe. Yeah,
You know, it's home.
safe.
It's safe.
It's
You know, you're
there's
cared for. Like, they'll help
yeah,
you out. Like,
there's treats. It's kind of exciting. There might be cookies where there's not.
you can
You
let
know, at
down your
other
guard.
places, yeah, you let down your guard. And so I was like, man, that's a really cool feeling for people to feel like they don't have to be anything but themselves in my home.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's winning. That's winning
And
right
I
there.
mean,
And so
that to me is true confidence, because you know who you are. Like, confidence to me isn't like overcoming someone or showing it, or saying I'm going to try to be confident. It's just kind of being
yeah,
who you are. And no matter what situation you're in, you know who you are. And
yeah,
it sounds very, maybe cliche. It sounds very simple, very basic, but that's what confidence comes down, is knowing what you're about and not flinching when you enter an environment that doesn't look like you or feel like you or sound like you. Um, there really is something to somebody just feeling that comfortable in their skin, where they don't feel threatened. And
yeah,
by not feeling threatened, you feel more welcome. You know,
yeah,
I mean, it's so much about energy.
yeah.
Like you mentioned, it's amazing what that energy, unspoken, but just
Mm-hmm.
what that energy allows. So those are great examples that you've brought up. So, Drew, I always ask the authors that I have on the series, how did this book, writing it, how did it change you? What did you take away from the experience? And not so much, well, when I was researching this, I found this instead, but like maybe your views on leadership, your approach to maybe your family, your work, your business. How did the process of doing this, of writing this book, how did it change you?
Oh, you know,
Or what lessons have you taken away?
I know kind of what I want to say with that. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. I think it showed me that I have really great people around my life, because writing a book is a vulnerable thing. You're saying like, this is what I believe beyond just me telling somebody, but like this is my thesis, of life, and I'm putting it out there in the public square to be critiqued, and I'm going to own it. And so that is, I don't know. It's different than I've had a YouTube channel for a number of years. It's just different though, the written word than spoken word.
Mhm.
So that was a big experience in doing that, and a great experience. I mean, I just have great people around my life that want to see me do well, and have bought the book for their team, and have given me Amazon reviews, and that's how the world turns. The world of books turn is through Amazon reviews, and so it's been a great experience to do that. I was going to say, or I was thinking this when we started. Anybody out there considering writing a book, just do it. Do it for yourself as well, to kind of formulate. If you're familiar with YouTube much, Patrick Bet-David is a successful entrepreneur, has a YouTube channel, Valuetainment, one of the top channels. And I was at a conference that he spoke at just a couple months ago, and he came out and he said, he showed a picture of his grandfather that he never met. So he immigrated from Iran. His grandfather died before he was born. He said, I never met that man. And he said, I couldn't tell you how much I would pay to be able to have a conversation with him, to be able to learn from his life and his wisdom and just his experiences. And he said, that's what your YouTube channel can be. I got so fired up. He's like, think about that. Your kids, your grandkids, you want to teach them about life. You want to teach them about leadership. If no one else watches your YouTube videos, but it's just a catalog for your kids, your grandkids, your legacy to watch and to learn and to say, I know my dad, I know my grandpa, I know my great grandpa because I watched his videos. And it's funny, I got a 17-year-old daughter that she edited a lot of my YouTube videos for about a year there, and she uses some of those techniques on me, man. It's crazy. But for that reason alone, write your own book, start your own YouTube channel, for your own family legacy, to just kind of share your wisdom, your point of view, your philosophy of life, so that even if nobody else in your lifetime learns from it except you or your family members.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge. It's the people closest to you, thinking the highest of you. And so for that, and then, I think it's fun. I mentioned earlier, I want to write more books. And now that it's like anything else, you do it the first time, people, if they run a marathon or they run a 10K, 5K, something like that, they're like, okay, I've done it. I know how to do it. And now I can do it again. And that's, man, if you take that lesson into anywhere in life, you really don't know how to do anything until you do it.
Yeah.
Right. Until you go out there and you try and you start to do it and you figure it out along the way. And so, I would just encourage your listeners to do that. I can't wait to, do you have a book out yet? Do you, John?
No, I have 2 in the works.
Okay.
Eventually. I don't.
Okay.
Why do you ask?
No, because I'm waiting for it now. I'm ready to read it.
Yeah, no, I just said we have a 3-month-old in the house, so, and that's no excuse, but how, you have your kids, you have like this rhythm. So when there's a new stage in the house, you kind of have to get acclimated to it. I'm getting to the point, I'm waiting for the point where I can kind of stay up past 9 o'clock, because when I put the kids to bed, it's just like, all right, I just got to sit down, veg out, and I'm out on the couch. But in the next couple of months, I want to go back to these manuscripts that I had written, one towards students and one building off of a presentation that I do. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands. I think I have like 50,000 words and 60,000 words. So it's there. And I one of them I started writing 2 years ago during the summer. Took time off, or on my days off, I go to a coffee shop, and just sit there and go. And I think I have like a first draft, and now I'm like, all right, now I got to go back and do all like looking through it and cleaning it up. But this conversation is motivation enough, because what you just mentioned about, if for nothing else, think about the legacy that you leave in the written word in your YouTube channel to your kids.
Yeah.
And I just posted something about this on LinkedIn, where part of the appeal of this and why people may see me having fun on here and being passionate about this podcast is because it's amazing that what I wouldn't give the same way. Who was it you just referenced? The entrepreneur
Patrick Bet-David. Yeah.
Talked about his grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
What I wouldn't give just to hear my dad's lessons or his conversations.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that I'm adding to a catalog, whether it's audio or video, that my kids will get to, hopefully want to see later. I mean, for me, that's motivation enough.
Yeah.
For me, that's motivation enough. Learning from my guests is enough. So I love that reasoning that you give about, you just learn about what your value is. And there's something to, I love that you called it your thesis for life or of life, because it's kind of like, how often do any of us really get to put something together and kind of hold it in our hand, aside from kids, and say, I've left this. Now this is part of me, my lessons, my legacy, and you're going to write many more. It's powerful, not too many people think about their legacy. I don't know, maybe because they've never been introduced to it. They've never been asked to think about it. But for me, legacy is, I don't know where that stems from. I don't know. I think it's maybe because my parents were immigrants to this country. They came here with nothing, raised 2 kids. And I want to kind of make sure that I leave something to kind of solidify that, I mean, an added thing, I have my family, I have my health, I have all that, but to leave something tangible like that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge part of just being a parent, is saying, how can I make life better for my own kids? How can I teach them things that I think our parents, for the most part, parents do the best they can with what they know how. And then it's our responsibility to take it another level. And then our kids can see our shortcomings and they can say, well, I'm going to do even better in that area.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
And so, yeah, man, my wife and I talk about that often in leaving that legacy and just the lessons of what they can do, right? Kind of for us, it's raising the bar as high as we can, because whatever the highest we get in our life is really going to kind of be the floor for our kids.
Yeah.
Where they'll go, okay, my parents did that, so I know I can at least do that and some.
Yeah.
Right?
Improve upon what I did.
Yeah.
You don't have to blow past it exponentially, but regardless of whether or not your parents are immigrants, like I think each generation should be slightly improved or leave something slightly better than their parent. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
So, Drew, one last question before two questions.
Sure.
What do you think is up for your next books? What kind of areas do you want to focus on?
So I'm putting together, I'm calling it the Leadership Development Operating System.
Okay.
So I work with some franchise owners who have a fantastic business operating system, right? They purchased this franchise, whether it's a Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, anything, right? Any kind of franchise, it's business in a box. But the difference between those franchises that really excel and the ones that you see shut down, boarded up on the side of the road is leadership. And there's not a roadmap for there's not even really in I would consider Chick-fil-A the top leadership organization in quick service restaurants. They still leave it up to the individual operator to determine how they're going to go about developing leaders. So I'm putting together this leadership development operating system along with a complementary book that will go along with it called the Hero Maker Method, that people will use to really mentor people through the material and create a self-feeding cycle of leadership development so that you never run out of leaders, because there's only so many of you and I, right? And we can only be in so many places. And at the end of the day, just like you're trying to teach your clients to think through their authentic self. Why is that? Because eventually you're not going to be there. You're going to move on down the road with another client and they're going to have to still solve those problems. So if you can teach them the skills of how to think through some of those problems, then they're going to be effective. And so that's where I'm going with that. So more systematized, just recognizing I need to, there's a lot of content out there, but I need to put together a system that people can easily follow and put it into practice. So yeah, that's the next iteration.
Awesome, man. Is there anything else now in wrapping up? Is there anything else you want to share that I might have missed, or anything you have coming up that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I just want to share with all your guests. They can obviously get my book on Amazon. You can get it on Audible, get the audio version, all that kind of stuff. But you can get the digital copy or an audio copy, the audio file of the entire book, absolutely free at theexecutiveleadershandbook.com. So It's totally free to your listeners, theexecutiveleadershandbook.com. And it's the entire book there in a digital version or the audio version. But if you like the physical copy, which I do, but you know what I like to do, John? I like to test them out. I like to test out the book in like a digital copy first, and get the Kindle version or whatever, and see if I really like it. And then if I really like it, I buy the physical copy.
Yeah.
So I can.
It's so funny. I need to make notes, and people are like, "Oh, you can make notes in like an ebook." I'm like, "No, I need."
I haven't figured that out either.
Margin and all that. So I need like the hard copy. So
yeah.
Drew, thank you so much for sitting down with this.
Thanks for having
this conversation for your book, The Executive Leaders Handbook. Hope to have you back in the future when you get to those other books that you got percolating in your mind.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. I learned so much from this conversation, just going from kids to legacy to Les Brown. Now I got to go check out his stuff, buy his cassettes, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for anybody watching and listening, if there's anything that I might have missed, asking Drew, we're limited. We go long, but we're limited on time. I know I could keep going down rabbit holes and tangents. So if there's anything that I might have missed, let me know. If you're curious about it, let me know. And I can reach out to Drew, see if there is something that I might have missed, what he can clarify. In the meantime, thank you for listening and watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.